Hello tubers, Robert Tween, 1979. As y'all guys can see, my kids have invaded my shop again. And yes, the Cub Cadet is outside. Yes, it does run. This is actually the second time I'm making this video because the first one for some reason didn't save to my card. Issue with the Cub Cadet. If you go out there to crank that thing, you glow plug it. Turn the key on, you got to crank it. You better have the throttle set about a third of the way, or not even a third, maybe eighth of the way up, and keep cranking until that thing starts picking up in the RPM and then finally fires off. Now, if you're cranking on that thing like I just did, 20 minutes ago, it'll try to start and it won't start. Then you go plug it again, walk away and leave that damn thing alone for about an hour or two, and then come back and she'll fire off. It's almost like it floods itself out in a way. That's the only way I can explain it. And my thought is it's such a low compression diesel motor. I mean, that's all there is to it. And the reason I say it's a low compression diesel, the only time you really get into the higher compression diesels is when there's a turbo involved on it. If you go buy a diesel and it's got a turbo, you're going to have a little bit higher compression in that diesel motor. And the reason I say this one's a low compression diesel is I've never in my entire time of rebuilding stuff, other than stuff like chainsaws or small crap which you don't even have rod bolts in them, is your torque specs on your rod bolts are normally 50 to 60, 80 pounds on most things. This Cub Cadet is 23 foot-pounds is the torque spec on the rod bolts. Sorry. That tells me right there that's a low compression as heck diesel. Because even your lawnmower motor, say this one right here, this Color Magnum, I guarantee it's a lot higher than 23 foot-pounds. Or it might even match it. I don't know, but that's just low compression. So I mean, it's just odd having a diesel motor with that low of a torque spec on the rod bolts. Head bolts are only 70 foot-pounds. I think I'm talking to 75 foot-pounds or 78, something like that. I've got the paper right over here. Oh man, this shop's a mess. But yeah, 72 to 80 foot-pounds. I think I want 75. And that's the big head bolts. The smaller head bolts, which there's only 3 on the side, are 47 to 57. I want right at 50. And then right there, 23 to 25 foot-pounds. That's your rod bolts. Okay, come on. That bottom end is what takes all the abuse in a diesel motor. Because of the compression, the way a diesel burns, it don't have spark plugs or anything. It burns on combustion of compression. Or compression incurs into combustion, and that's what runs it. So that bottom end is what's going to take the most abuse because it takes all the force of that combustion. At 23 to 25 foot-pounds of torque, there's not a whole lot of force there. So that's why I believe it's a low compression diesel. And I truly honestly believe somebody has gone in and replaced those pistons before I did. And I'm almost assuming they put the wrong pistons in it. Because there's that certain motor, that K3G, calls for 2 different pistons. You can have the high compression piston or a low compression piston. The difference between the low and high compression is, as you see in the previous video, the piston had a hole in the center with a dish in it. And it came to a little point in the center of it. That is your pre-high compression combustion chamber, is what they called it. Now, being with the torque specs on the higher combustion on the torque specs for Cub Cadet called for, I think it was 40 to 50 foot-pounds on the rod bolts. So it makes you wonder if that hadn't been rebuilt at some other point in time or other pistons put in it. because I was talking to the gentleman that owns it. They bought the thing. Oh, I'm gonna say he's probably had that tractor maybe a year and a half, and it's been sitting at my place for almost a year. It's been sitting here for, cool, man. Let's see, 8 months. So they bought it the spring of the year before. So they had it a year whenever he brought it to me to work on it. So kind of strange and awkward, really. But he told me who he got it through, which is a place over in New Mexico's where they had it. And the guy that he got it from there was a kind of a used tractor dealer. And through conversation back and forth, found out that guy's a firm believer if it don't fire off in the first 3 seconds, hit it with some starting fluid. The original owner of the tractor, the people that originally bought it, were over in the New Mexico area, or just inside, somewhere over here. He's kind of skipping around on details, so it's kind of made the story hard to follow. But the previous owner owned several other tractors, and on cold days he wouldn't glow plug. He'd just shoot it with shot of ether and fire them off. So I'm pretty sure at one point in time that thing had melted down pistons in it, because that's what starting fluid will do on a low compression diesel. It'll just melt the pistons down. And that's what we saw in this. The first time I tore it down, the piston rings were all busted and melted into the actual piston itself. And this time I tore it apart, there was one busted ring on it. I never used starting fluid on it. That busted ring happened either when the install was in or whenever I pulled it out. Because I just took the bolts loose and just pushed up and popped them right out of there, and that number one cylinder kind of flew out and bounced, hit the ground, and all kind of weird stuff. I didn't get that on video, but I guess I'm gonna go try firing this thing up again. It'll probably be another failed start. Probably won't fire off. It ain't been sitting really long enough. Like I said, it's only 40-something degrees outside, so it's not bad. Okay, throttle, right there it starts hitting the throttle block. That much is all I do. Now let's glow plug it. You'll see the glow plug start glowing in there. It's got the Kubota set up on it with the glow plug indicator. Instead of being a light or something coming on telling you glow plug, this has got a spring in here that gets red hot. And when it gets all glowing red hot, you know the glow plugs are hot, supposedly. You can start seeing her in there. Yeah, see it glowing red in there now? Glow plugs are ready. Now let's try to crank her up. And see, that's what it'll do. Now I can come back out here in an hour and a half, glow plug again, and she'll probably bust right off. It's just, I don't understand it. I mean, I do, but I don't. I mean, I think it's had time. Once it does all that, it's trying to combust and everything else. It's going to, after it sits, it actually warms up, block up just enough to kind of help aid in firing off. I think that's where the issue's coming, is that blocks is too cold. But I don't know, it's kind of weird. As I said, it died on me. He showed up, I worked on his truck, he showed up, did the exact same thing I just did now with the glow plug in it and cranking it, and it fired up while he was sitting here. Yesterday morning, it did the same thing it just did now. It didn't start. It tried to, and then that was it. So I was like, well, now what? So I come back out a couple hours later, did the same thing, glow plugged it, cranked it, she fired up. So I don't understanding. I mean, and the other thing too is when she's sitting there, she's running, and then she dies, which it did that yesterday. I was running around. You can see the spot there in the gravel. Had it parked right there, just idling, and it died on me. I was like, what the heck? So I let it sit. Tried to crank it, wouldn't crank. And a gentleman showed up, which I'll go into that detail later. Anyway, I was out there helping him for about an hour. Come back over, cranked it, and she fired right back up. Backed her back over here. So I really don't know. So what I'll do is I'll upload this video as a failed cold start, and then I'll turn around and come out here in about a couple hours, and we'll try her again. And I bet you she'll probably bust off and take her running. So you'll see that she does actually run. Now, what we are going to do, I talked to the owner. We're going to take the brackets off here, the front bracket off. Basically, all the loader mount brackets were taken off this thing because he's actually going to end up running this to the auction, which is coming up next month. So I think he'd be a lot better off to probably get more out of the tractor if he left the loader on it, because what he's wanting to put the loader on is a old, run-down, wore-out, I don't know if it's Alice or if it's a Massey Ferguson. I think it's a Massey Ferguson. A little 3-cylinder diesel motor in that tractor. I mean, it's bigger than this thing. But the problem is, the pinion gear is missing a tooth off of it, and they cannot find one. They do not make them. You can't find them anymore. They just want to put a loader on it, but they won't run the PTO on it because the PTO runs off of the pinion gear in the rear end. Well, they don't want to destroy that pinion gear. Well, what do you think is going to happen when they put a loader on it and start pushing with it? Same thing's going to end up happening with that pinion gear. I mean, the thought process the guy has, I have no clue. I'd put the loader back on this thing, get it all back up, take it to the auction. Day of the auction, fire the sucker up, run it through the block. That's somebody else's problem. So, but that's where it's at. Like I said, I may sit here. I'm going to glow plug the crap out of this thing. I'm just going to pull it. I'm just going to pull it just a hair past. Just enough. But I'm going to sit here and I'm going to glow plug the crud out of this thing. I'm going to let it just beat red for a while. And maybe those glow plugs just are slow to warm. Maybe. I don't know. It's at 43 degrees. This thing ought to crank over and bust off without glow plugs. I mean, hell, the thing's only got 874 hours on this tractor. So, but y'all see, it's glowing red. Now I'm just gonna let her sit there and glow for a minute or two, and then we're gonna crank her up and see if she'll bust off. So, you can see it's still glowing red in there. I ain't letting off the key. Check out the key held. Alright, let's crank it now. She'll start cranking, she'll start cranking a little bit faster and faster and faster, she'll finally start. And when she starts slowing back down cranking, she ain't gonna do it. So, anyway, that's a failed cold start on that tractor. So we'll see y'all guys in a couple hours in another video. So, if you ain't subscribed, rate, comment. See y'all guys in the next one. Have a good one.